Day 27, Home for the Holidays, October 17th, 2006. My last major trip of the year finally came to a close yesterday when Paris and I flew home from New York City. Spent almost a month on the road, partly for pleasure, partly for business, doing signings in 5 Midwestern cities to help promote my YA book, The Ice Dragon, and the paperback release of A Feast for Crows. Started out by flying into Chicago, where I attended the Old Toy Soldier Show in Schaumburg, the world's best toy soldier show, and always great fun when I can find the time to attend it. And spent way too much money on toy nights, picking up some beautiful old Courtenay, Ping, and Vertoni figures. If you don't know what those are, you obviously haven't been reading the Knights page of my website. Some beautiful new miniatures by Brian Rodden, a great new siege tower from King & Country, and various other toys collectibles. I also signed and read The Border's Dawn in the Water Tower Place on the Magnificent Mile, and enjoyed dinner at the Greek Isles with some of the local members of the Brotherhood Without Banners. I never miss a chance to eat at the Greek Isles. Opa, that's Greek for the cheese is on fire. After the Toy Soldier show, it was off to Dubuque, Iowa for another Ice Dragon signing and a couple of days visiting my old haunts. The original story that was the basis of the young adults, the YA, was written in Dubuque during the winter of 1978 to 79, so it only seemed proper to include the city on my tour. Given my feelings about the TSA and airport security, I decided to get a rental car and drive the rest of my Midwestern appearances. Not much slower than flying, given how short most of the hops were, and far more pleasant. The car had GPS and I had my iPod, so the short drive to Iowa was fast and fun. Had a nice signing at the small independent bookstore at the River Lights, and also had the time to poke around the city. It was the first time I had returned to Dubuque since moving away in 1979, and all in all the city had not changed nearly as much as I feared. My old house is still standing, as was the college Clark where I once taught journalism, and the old Julian Hotel where my ex-wife and I once held Dubucon, the city's first and last science fiction convention. The pizza at Marco's is still pretty good for the Midwest, and the Fenelon Place elevator was still there. But now it only runs in summer. On the other hand, all the movie theaters are gone, and now there's an ugly 4-lane highway cutting off downtown from the Mississippi, not to mention a huge and hideous fake riverboat casino. I did like the new River Museum, however. Across the river, East Dubuque remains as sleazy as ever, but the chili and mulgars is not nearly as hot as I remembered, which may have more to do with me living in New Mexico for the last couple of decades with the recipe. After 3 days in Iowa, it was off to Indianapolis and a signing at Barnes & Noble in Carmel. I did not want to have to contend with Chicago traffic again, so I headed south out of Dubuque and followed the river road down to I-74. That had to be the nicest drive of the trip. Autumn was just coming in, the days were warm and sunny, the trees were turning, and the little river towns along the banks of the Mississippi remained unchanged from the last time I passed this way 20-odd years ago. I had another good event in Indianapolis, reading from The Ice Dragon and signing a lot of books. My hotel was right across the street from Hoosier Dome, and when I realized the Colts were playing my Jets that very Sunday, I had a brief moment of excitement, thinking I might be able to snag a ticket and see Chad take on Peyton. But alas, the game was being played in New Jersey at the Meadowlands. I did, however, ride up to Auburn, Indiana with my friend C.D. Doyle to check out the Auburn/Cord/Duesenberg Museum there, which proved to be well worth the trip. Room after room after room of gorgeous vintage automobiles, each more impressive than the last. Most of them were Auburn's Cords, USA's, of course, but they have a 55 T-Bird and a Jaguar XKE, Gullwing Mercedes 300 SL, Shelby, Cobra, classic Ferrari, and a lot of other vehicles that made me drool. If you ever find yourself driving down the interstate past Auburn, take the time to pull off and have a look at the museum. It's well worth it. As for me, I think I want my next car to be a Cord. Oh my god, this post is long. After Indy, I was on to Cincinnati, where I did a reading and signing at Joseph Beth. The good folks at Joe Beth always got a big turnout for their events, and this one was no exception. I spent a couple of extra days in Cincinnati, long enough to spend some time with Denise and Steve Lay, catch the first day of the Tall Sacks Riverboat Festival. Real boats, not tawdry jokes like the Riverboat Casino to see permanently moored all up and down the river, most of them no more than concrete barges lacking even an engine. And take a cruise, enjoy some ribs in Montgomery, visit the Bob Hornung, and with Tom and Karen Meyer, and see the latest batch of Night's Watch figures that Tom is sculpting for the miniatures game forthcoming from testers. Spectacular work as always. Tom also has a terrific 54mm version of Tyrell Loris Tyrell in the works. It's actually kind of awesome. I want to see that. Then it was back west again to Archon and St. Louis. Well, oh my god, my battery is running low. Well, Collinsville, Illinois, actually, but close enough. I was the Archon's very first guest of honor back in '77, and this year was the 30th Archon, so I had to be there. It has grown to quite a large con over the past 30 years, from 300 people in '77 to about 2,700 this year. And these days, a con draws more costumers and gamers than it does readers, but the parties are always fun. St. Louis fans have always gone the extra mile to welcome guests and take good care of them. Fortunately, the mood of the con turned somber on Friday when word reached Collinsville that Willem Bob Tucker had died. Tucker lived most of his life in the area and had been a huge part of many of the past Archons, leading endless moods and welcoming hundreds of newcomers to the fandom. There was never a more friendly or accessible pro, or one more beloved in Midwestern fandom, so his loss is deeply felt. Nor was Tucker the only ghost roaming the halls of the Holiday Inn this year. I also miss Dan Patterson, a good friend and a talented artist who was a fixture at Archon until his death, and always threw the best party at the convention. We've lost too many good people of late, sad to say. I did have a good signing, I'm pleased to say. Some of you may have heard the story of what happened at my last bookstore event in St. Louis back in '96, during the Game of Thrones tour when I was scheduled to sign in downtown St. Louis while Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen were signing in Collinsville 30 minutes away. That one did not work out well, but it did much better this time in Brentwood. Maybe because it wasn't up against two Rays. Harris was supposed to join Mid-Archon flying in on Friday from New Mexico, but she sprained her ankle packing for the trip and postponed her departure a day. And then on Saturday, she got a flat tire on the way to the airport and missed her flight. So it was Sunday before she finally reached St. Louis, and by the time she reached the hotel, the con was over and there was nothing for her to do but grab a burger and some shoestring fries at Steak and Shake, crash and fly out with me the next morning for New York City and the Quill Awards. Welp, having already lost the Hugo Award and the British Fantasy Award, A Feast for Crows made it 3 for 3 by losing the Quill. This time it was beaten by Deanna Gabaldon and A Breath of Snow and Ashes. Miss Gabaldon was gracious enough to say the Feast should have won when she got up to accept her award, which is very kind of her. Despite losing, it was a swell evening. The event was a black tie held in the American Museum of Natural History beneath a stupendous full-size blue whale, and Louis Black opened the festivities by telling us that we should all enjoy the dinner before the awards, since most of us would be losers before the evening was out. Man after my own heart, Louis Black. Paris looked especially gorgeous in her new dress. MSNBC will be telecasting an edited version of the awards later this month, which may or may not include a shot or two of me. The rest of our stay in NYC was great as well. I got to eat real pizza several times, saw my agents, caught up, and had some very productive meetings with editors from Bantam, Tor, and Starscape, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, Random House Comics. I did a drop-by signing at both of the Fifth Avenue Barnes & Nobles if anyone there in the Apple is looking for a signed book. Those two stores have plenty. I saw my family in Jersey, and on Sunday, thanks to my brother-in-law Gerard, Paris and I got to attend the Jets game at the Meadowland Jets, 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 along with Fireman Ed, as Chad tossed a couple of touchdown strikes to Lavernus and defeated the Dolphins. The defense almost did give away the game at the end, but never mind. So it was a long trip, but a good one. I covered a lot of miles, had a lot of fun, signed a lot of books, and I'm glad to be home. Done an awful lot of travel since A Feast for Crows came out, and while I have enjoyed it, it does wear me out. And I've always found it impossible to get any writing down while on the road. There's nothing else on my schedule until February, however, so for the rest of the year, I will be right here, shackled to the computer, pounding the keys. I have half a dozen different projects on my plate, but the big one is A Dance with Dragons, and I'm going to be pushing hard on that in the weeks and months to come, in hopes of wrapping it up by the end of the year. Current mood, null. Dude, he still thought that he could finish it by the end of the year in October? Like, the Mirror is not seriously took that much time to resolve. Or he just had that many other projects, etc. come up. Man, I hope he, like, if The Winds of Winter comes out, that he wins the Hugo for it, because Storm of Swords should have gotten it. I don't know enough about the competition around A Feast for Crows, but A Feast for Crows is my favorite book in the series, and I feel like it's sad hearing him talk about how he lost all 3 of these awards he cares about. My voice box hurts from speaking for so long. Such a long post. I mean, it's almost like karma after the last one was like 2 sentences. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye.